Imagine that you're not living the life that you planned for. You're not even living the life that you're now enjoying. You're living the life that in your wildest dreams and aspirations, you didn't believe was possible. This is Ann Backrack. Welcome to the 58 action-packed, thought-provoking minutes built around the strategies to increase your productivity and your income. Of course, this web class is being recorded and you'll have access to it later if you'd like to review the slides or the entire web class. It'll be available on my website as well as Insurance WebEx Insider area. To ask questions, please type your question in the question area on the GoToWebinar area, and I will be able to answer them at the end or as I go, depending on what the question is. As you might imagine, we can't open all the lines up because there's too many people and there could be potentially too much static in the background. Okay, the web class concepts for today are listed on your screen right now that you're looking at. And we'll talk a little bit about preparation. So make sure you have either the old-fashioned paper and pencil ready for our time together, or if you have a second screen, and some people even have more than two, or an iPad, feel free to get ready to take some notes as well. Now, I will try to go slow enough for you to capture the ideas that you think will help you reach your next level of success. Okay, let's get started. Well, Mark Victor Hansen has a great quote, and you see that at the bottom of your screen. It says, focused mind power is one of the strongest forces on earth. So we just need to consistently work on focusing on the activities that produce the biggest results. High payoff activities, or HPAs, as some people call them, are actions that have the biggest impact on you reaching your goals within the time frame that you've set. In other words, they are the actions that basically catapult you forward faster than any other actions. Now, many people find it difficult to stay focused and do the work required to achieve their goals. You know, they seem to be doing nothing or little to nothing versus really getting laser focused and clear on their highest payoff activities that will put them in the highest probability position to achieve their goals. Then you have the people who are putting their heads down and not letting the little things, the shiny objects, and the non-high payoff activities stifle or distract them from what they really want to achieve. So high payoff activities are activities that are the absolute best activities that only you can do and nobody else really can do. Being aware of high payoff activities can literally take days, months, and even years off the time it takes to achieve your goals. Identifying your high payoff activities takes nothing more than a simple action evaluation before choosing which activity to pursue. So before choosing which activities to add to your calendar and track on your spreadsheet, consider the end result of your options and choose the activity that brings about the best result. Now, the result can be short-term or it can be a long-term result. So there are only 168 hours in a week for all of us. We all have the same finite amount of time to work with. So it's how you choose to use your 168 hours to achieve your goals is really the key to your success. Now, I love this quote by Jim Rohn. He said, time is more valuable than money. You can get more money, but you cannot get more time. So we spend every second of our day however we choose to spend it. And those seconds add up and we never can get them back. So those seconds could even add up to, minutes, hours, or even days wasted. Also, you want to keep in mind that what you choose not to do is just as important as what you choose to do. So maybe that's better said. What you choose not to do can have a bigger negative impact on your success than what you choose to do. Brian Tracy also has a really good quote that says, always concentrate on the most valuable use of your time. This is what separates the winners from the losers. Now, since we all have the same finite amount of time in the week, and given that finite amount of time, choose the activities that bring about the biggest return first, and then prioritize the remaining activities based on their return or result or outcome. So let's consider how we might apply the 80-20 rule to your high payoff activities and your time. So this is just a thought on how you might apply a concept of the 80-20 rule. So let's say, for example, that 80% of your time is spent on high payoff activities only. Of that 80%, you need to decide how much time is spent on things that produce, again, a short-term result, and what percent of your time is spent on activities that perhaps have a longer-term result. The remaining 20% of your time might be spent on then preparing for your high payoff activities. So getting organized, cleaning up your office, delegating other tasks that somebody else can do, those sort of things. These could potentially be activities that you currently do and maybe you can't delegate or haven't delegated to anyone yet. So keep in mind, you want to try to do also as many similar or like activities, high payoff activities together as possible. So you don't have to continually change what I call change our thinking hat to different activities. Now this will significantly help you be even more efficient and effective. Imagine for a minute how much more effective you will be if you consistently concentrate more on your highest payoff activities every day. So your highest payoff activities are typically 2 to 3 actions that you need to do in order to be in the highest probability position to achieve your goals. So think about this for a minute and just jot down or type down your highest payoff activities. What are your personal highest payoff activities? The activities that only you can do, you need to do to put yourself in the highest probability position to achieve your goals. These are typically, again, things that cannot be delegated. What are your highest payoff activities that you need to do first? Maybe every day. You might need to do something related to, for example, client acquisition every day, day in, day out. What are your highest payoff activities? Now, once you make a list of all your activities, I always believe prioritization, obviously everything starts with a list, so a list is always good. So then you want to prioritize your list. So if you got only one thing done, what activity has the biggest impact on you achieving your goals? What's that one thing for today? That one thing on my list today? Now think about or look at your list, if you have a list or if you have it handy, of everything that you need to do, every single thing you need to do your job. Now for some of you, your list might be several sticky notes or scrap pieces of paper or just sheets of paper lying on your desk. It could be things in your head, just to name a few places where you might find your list or lists. It might be all over the place. I've seen some of my clients' lists that had, 50 or 75 or more items on their list of all the things that they felt they personally needed to do. Now, your list might be that long, at least initially when you're thinking about it. So when you prioritize it, it helps you more quickly get those items done one at a time. Here's my most important thing, check it off. My second thing, check it off. So when you view each activity, you want to be asking yourself, Do you really need to do it, or could somebody else actually do it? If it's delegatable, then maybe in the future if you don't have somebody now to delegate to, you might find a temporary person, a part-time person, or if that's not possible, you might start noting what is delegatable when I would have somebody to do this particular or do these particular types of activities. Now, if you feel you have to do all the work yourself because you don't have anybody else, you want to obviously do your highest payoff activities first, and then pick the best downtime to do the lower activities. If you can delay them, obviously that would be even better. So this means that you're going to complete your lower activities during what some people might call non-prime time. So for example, prime time might be the best time to make certain types of phone calls to get the best possible results when you think you can reach the most people. You may not know when the best time to do certain activities are until you actually go through a trial period to explore this more thoroughly. So basically, prime time is the key time to get the biggest return for that block of time. Now, sometimes activities that aren't your highest payoff activities are easy to do. So many of us work on them first and then get them done quickly and think, okay, it's only going to take a minute to get these things done, and then I'm going to move on. Now, I call this procrastination to doing the real work that will produce the biggest result in the time period that you want. I also refer to doing activities that aren't your highest payoff activities as business development or revenue generation avoidance activities. It could be client acquisition avoidance activities. So doing the items that are easy and quick to do still take time. And remember, our time is valuable. So we're spending it however we're spending it. So since we all have the finite amount of time, we want to be as effective as possible. Now, let's talk a little bit about something that goes hand in hand with your calendar. These two things should work synergistically together. Now, you may have heard it called as the to-do list or a master task list. I prefer to call it the prioritized action list, or PAL. It's your buddy or pal. You always have it handy. You know what's on it, and it's always in priority order. It's basically a list of every single task, activity that you have to do, need to do, or want to do. And it will obviously then, if you want to do it, need to do it, or have to do it, time has to be allocated in the calendar. That's why these two things work in harmony together, your prioritized action list and your calendar. Now, you may have a system in place that allows you to easily obtain this information, like Redtail or Juncture or ACT or Outlook or Goldmine or Xplan, or there's a number of different ways that you could have your to-do list, master task list is typically what these systems call it. I'm the only one that I know of that's ever called it a prioritized action list. But there are systems that allow you to be customized and put those items into that system to help you, because a lot of times it might be related to a client that you have, so you want to have the action connected to that particular client and that activity. So if you don't already have a way to create this kind of prioritized action list, you need to. The prioritized action list, or PAL, basically helps you and your team organize their calendars around the priorities listed on the PAL. So in your daily or weekly meetings with each of your team members, you want to review their current PAL. It's a great communication tool and helps you know exactly what has been done or will be done in support of your firm and your clients. It helps to make decisions about what should make it to the calendar based on the goals of the firm. It's easy when everyone has their own PAL and knows exactly what to do, and then they're accountable for it. I actually originally created this because I had a number of advisors weren't really interested in holding their support team people accountable well, but yet they wanted to know what they were doing. So I created this to allow them to have an easy way to know what's being done and know what the priorities are on their list, and they could actually see what they're doing and what they have done. So everyone needs to have a PAL, everyone, including you. Okay. So keep in mind that the stuff in your head can be very distracting. So I have all these things in my head that I'm trying to remember, being afraid that I'm going to forget. So how many of you continually have all these things in your head trying to remember, oh, I have to do this today, or I have to do this tomorrow, I have to do this next week? How many of you wake up in the middle of the night going, oh my gosh, I need to remember to do this? These are all distractions. When you effectively use your prioritized action list on a consistent basis, you don't have all these things going on in your head. Again, trying to remember them or being afraid you're going to forget them. The same holds true for your staff. Believe it or not, they're the same way. They have, a lot of times you'll see sticky notes or scrap pieces of paper or step pads or whatever they might be using, and they maybe forget something. It's 3 pages before on the piece of paper, or they're trying to remember things in their head. So we all a lot of times started out working this way. We just have to be more diligent and more focused on what we need to do so the balls don't get dropped and we're effectively using all of our time. So you want one place for everything to have your activities that you're responsible for and that they're responsible for. So my idea of a prioritized action list is basically the headings that you see on your screen. So is it on the calendar, yes or no? The reason why I put that there originally was because, again, it was in an Excel spreadsheet format, and a lot of times people just added things to their list, and they didn't know if they'd actually added adequate time in their calendar to actually do that activity. So if they didn't, it would just say an N next to it, so they'd go back and remember, oh yeah, I have to allocate time for that. Because believe it or not, I found people had a list, but they weren't really allocating appropriate time to their calendar to get these things done. Therefore, they had a list, but the things weren't getting done. So that's why they have to work together. What's the task or activity? What's the priority? And I would just prioritize, like I said, if you 75 or 100 or 50 things on your list, you just really want to only prioritize the things that you're doing today. So what's the most important things that I get done today in priority order? How much time do I think it's going to take? Again, the reason why I put that there is because staff felt like they said, well, my advisor thinks I only, everything takes only 5 minutes to get it done. And not everything takes 5 minutes. It takes longer than that. Well, let them know. I mean, this was a way for them to let you know how much time it would take to get that particular activity done. Category are things like client acquisition, ideal client service, non-ideal client service, building a team of subject matter experts that you want to recommend or work with, doing administrative type tasks or research. This was typically put in here more for the advisor than the administrative person. However, the administrative person still does a lot of the same, other than client acquisition, activities that you do. So it helps sync it up, so if they needed to be available during a client meeting, they could see that color is this color. They'd know that, okay, maybe they have to be available because you have a client coming in, so they might have an open time during that to be available. Assist just means I'm for a callback from the client, I need something from the home office, I need something from a vendor, I need something from who else might have to assist me to get this particular activity done. What's the due date? What's the date it actually got done? And any notes associated with that particular activity. So again, you want to color code things because it makes it, and have everybody use the same color codes in their calendar. I found that one time an advisor had an idea of color coding, his administrative manager had another idea of how she wanted to color code, and the third person had her idea. So everybody was using all different colors, which didn't match, so nobody knew what colors everybody was using and got confused on what they were looking at when they were looking at each other's calendars. So when you color code your calendar, you want to make sure that everybody has the same categories and are using the same colors. It just helps it better for everybody. Now, it doesn't matter, again, what system you use, as long as you have a system and you consistently follow it. if you're like many advisors that I coach who implement this system and follow it, you'll feel more focused, less distracted, and trying to remember things that are in your head. You'll feel good about the high payoff activities that you get done each and every day. So here quickly is just an example of what, this is actually an administrative manager. Her prioritized action list was in ACT. So she wasn't able to color code or do some of the other things like that in this particular system, but she created a system that followed that. Here's another example from another administrative manager who uses the prioritized action list in Outlook, and she was able to customize in Outlook most of the headings that I had in the prioritized action list, so she was able to follow the whole process. So again, a lot of the systems, and again, on the bottom left-hand side, you'll see it's just in an Outlook, it's called tasks. So every system has something, it's typically called task or to-do list or something like that. And then a lot of times people they don't even use all their contact management systems or software to the fullest degree. So a lot of times these things can be customized. You just don't know how to do it, but you just need someone to help you figure that out. Now, for the lower payoff activities, again, as much as possible, we want to delegate them. So what you see on your screen right now is, on the left-hand side, is a sample of the Excel spreadsheet that I created for originally, like I said, the administrative managers to help the advisors, but the advisors use some system, obviously, also. So that's just an example. On the right-hand side, what you're seeing is a delegation list. So as you start listing all the tasks that you have to do or activities that you have to do, what things actually can be delegated and actually move them over to that person's prioritized action list, or put it on to a delegation list because maybe you don't have somebody to delegate to, or now is not the best time to delegate some things to people. So you just want to keep a running list of what those things are that you want to eventually delegate or need to eventually delegate to someone else. So on the delegation list, you'll notice that it's what's the task or activity, how much time, because you've done it, how much time does it take to get it done, how often is it done, weekly, daily, monthly, quarterly, sporadically, have you delegated it, yes or no, and what notes or where is the process located. So there's a lot of things that go into what we're talking about today, and obviously would take us days almost to go over everything in detail, but just at a high level, we're covering a lot of this today. So processes are super important to every office, and I can't even begin to tell you the horror stories I've had of people who had somebody in their office for years and they left, or something happened and they were gone, or you terminated them for some reason and there were no processes listed on how to do their job at all. So trying to figure out how to do their job, for the next person that gets hired takes an enormous amount typically of your time, which is not a good use of time. So having processes documented and where they're located is beneficial for everybody. So you might want to just jot down on your notes right now, what are some of those things that you're currently doing that can be delegated? And believe it or not, if you really scrutinize what it is you're doing, many of the tasks probably can be delegated. So you want to really scrutinize everything that you do and ask yourself, could someone else do this? If they had a process, if there was a script for it, so could someone else do this so that I don't have to, so that you are actually doing only the things that you can do, your best use of your time, your highest payoff activities. Now, if you can't obviously delegate everything now, again, remember 20% of your time could be in non-prime time doing some of the things that can be delegated, but you aren't in a position to do that right now. Okay? So a great lesson to help you reduce lower payoff activities and leave time for your high payoff activities is the 4D formula for assessing the activities in your life. So you have too many things to do and not enough time. So how in the world do you decide what to do with these things? So consider every action item in your life and apply the 4D formula. Now, you're probably very familiar with this concept. However, you may not be applying it fully in your life to get the full benefits and advantages of this particular concept. So before we just briefly talk about the 4Ds, I think one bigger question and one important question is to ask yourself, can the activity be automated to get the same or better result? So today, with technology, you previously might not have been able to automate it in the past, but certain activities now might be very good candidates to automate now. So before you even begin the drop, delegate, delay, or do, you want to ask yourself, perhaps, could this be delegated? I'm sorry, could this be automated? So I think that's a really good question nowadays, just to ask ourselves to really consider, hey, in the old days, the old-fashioned way was this way. In today's world, this can be automated more easily, or part of it could be automated. Okay? So the first D is drop. Does it really need to be done at all? Really need to be done at all? So obviously this is the best of all options to discover that something on your list doesn't really need to be done. Woohoo! You get to drop it. The second one is delegate. So who else can do this besides you? Now there's an economic principle called comparative economic advantage. So simply put, if you're worth $50 an hour, it's smart to pay someone else to do the $20 an hour work so that you're freed up to do more of the $50 an hour work. So most successful advisors that I know are excellent delegators. Delay. It might need to be done, but doesn't have to be done right now. A lot of times we put pressure on ourselves to do things right now because we think, oh, it'd be better, or let me just get it off my plate, or let's just take care of it right now, but it really doesn't need to be done. And you really have to kind of smack yourself upside the head. Sometimes I have to do that to myself. It doesn't need to be done right now. It can be delayed. So it goes on the list for later. And then do. These are the things that must be done because they truly serve your goals and what's important to you in business and in life. So decide what makes it to your calendar and where it best goes on your calendar. So you want to scrutinize every single thing that you're doing. Now we want to talk a little bit about an effective calendaring system to help make sure your highest payoff activities and your lowest payoff activities are positioned in your calendar to get the best results. So Will and Ariel Durant said, the future never just happened, it was created. So let's manifest the future you want and make it a reality. So one of the success principles of any successful advisor is effective time management. So in order to create your ideal business and your ideal life, you must learn to schedule everything. I mean everything. Every single minute of your day is accounted for. Now, if you're like me, you think you can get done more than you actually can, so you run out of time to get everything done that you put on your list. For me, that's not a good feeling, especially if it were to happen every single day, day after day. So we have to learn how to really gauge our time. Tom Peters says, calendars never lie. They are 100% accurate and visible indicators of your priorities. So when you begin to time block and calendar items, you need to take a look at everything you have to do and how long you think it's going to take each one to get them done. And sometimes initially, you're going to need to add cushion time. Now, I've had people say, well, Ann, how much time is cushion time do I need to add? Well, I haven't been able to come up with a rule of thumb of how much extra time should be given to each activity. It obviously depends on you, how well you judge how you use your time, and the actual activity. So you may have to explore in the beginning to figure out what works best for you based on how well you guesstimate your initial time it's going to take for your activities. Now, if you actually do finish before the time that you've allotted yourself, you obviously have the gift of time to move on to the next thing. So put everything on your calendar. In time, you'll become better and know how much time actually everything takes to get done. Again, time blocking helps you identify also and put into blocks similar or like activities. So am I going to make follow-up phone calls to prospective clients during this time block? Am I going to conduct annual meetings during this time block? Am I going to do initial discovery meetings with potential clients during this time block, or these time blocks? So you want to be able to time block your calendar when you think it is the best to get the best result. And again, remember, the lower payoff activities are going to go outside of prime time. So when you think you can reach the most people, when you can schedule the most appointments, is typically prime time. Anything outside of that would be time for your lower payoff activities if you still need to do those. Now, when you look at your calendar now and consider putting on your highest payoff activities, do you have a percentage of time that you think you need to do in client acquisition or revenue generation, business development, whatever you might call that category? So I call it client acquisition, but you could call it revenue generation or business development. So what percentage of your time, when you look at your calendar, is it already blocked? If it's not, what time do I need to put on there, and how much time on each day do I need to put for client acquisition types of activities? How much time do I need to spend in ideal client service, perhaps versus non-ideal client service? How much time do I need to spend in any of the other activities that are supporting your business? So you really want to have a goal around where you think you need to be spending your time in each of these categories. So let's take a minute and let's just say that you have a regular 40-hour week. So how many hours would you need to do client acquisition of your available work time? In this case, it's 40 hours to get the outcome that you're looking for. So for most advisors who are still building their business, I believe they really need to be spending 15 to 20 hours in ideal client or client acquisition, revenue generation, business development type of activities. So my belief is it's 15 to 20 hours a week. So if we use the example and just cut the 40 hours in half and just say 20 hours for client acquisition, this means basically 50% of any given week you have to have time blocked in your calendar for client acquisition or business development, revenue generation. Now, a lot of times what happens is people put, okay, my goal is 20, they put 20. If my goal is 10, they put 10. The reality is again, things don't happen always the way we'd like for them to. So a lot of times what we need to do is actually schedule a little bit extra. So let's say a client was coming in, but they canceled and rescheduled for a different week. So we want to make sure that we have enough extra time. So if our goal, for example, initially, I said it's 15 to 20 hours, but initially you might only be doing an hour a week right now or 2 hours a week. So to go to that number is going to be nearly impossible for most people. Not that you can't work up to it, but just going from 1 or 2 to 20 is a big leap. So what you want to do is say, okay, my goal, Ann, is going to be 8 hours in the whole week. So I want to schedule 10 to make sure I hit 8. So that way you have a little bit of cushion if somebody cancels, something reschedules, something happens, somebody comes up and interrupts you, or something goes on. So you just want to make sure that you take into consideration, if your goal is 8, you always give yourself a little cushion to say maybe 10 hours. If your goal is 12, it might be 14 or 15, etc. So even if your goal is 20, you're still going to have more than 20 scheduled to actually hit 20. You also want to understand the concept of actual work weeks, actual work time. So nobody works 52 weeks a year. Nobody that I know of anyway, I've ever heard of, works 52 weeks a year. So you also want to take into consideration time, how many work weeks, actually available work weeks, are you really working? And so, hey, if I need to spend this amount of time, lay it out on your calendar that way. Some weeks you might have more, some weeks you might have a little bit less based on available time left and what your goals are. Okay, so what you want to do, and this is just an 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock example of a quote ideal model work week. So to me, the ideal model work week is extremely useful for everybody so we know where we want to put our activities. So if you have an administrative manager and assistant who puts things into your calendar, you want them to know where client acquisition or revenue generation types of activities you prefer for them to go. So when somebody calls in to book an appointment with you, they know where to put it in your calendar. So they'd put it in this example in the green time. So green for money, I just put that as a green time. So client acquisition, revenue generation. If it's non-ideal client service, and hopefully more and more you can delegate that to someone else, so you don't have to do it if you're currently doing a lot of it, you might typically have smaller blocks for that. And then if a non-ideal client calls or you need a meeting with that person, then again, if you have someone scheduling your appointments, they know where to typically put those people in that particular time block. Again, is this a perfect science? No. However, it just helps get a gauge. So for example, if they have to put a non-ideal client person service work into client acquisition time, they just trade the time. So you just move the time around. So if I have to, take some of this time, I don't just take it away and not give it back. I actually have to give it back and reposition it so they're not taking time away doing that. So a lot of your time, my guess, is consumed in non-ideal client service. If you're like a lot of advisors initially when I start working with them, a lot of their time is spent there because they haven't chosen to delegate more. Not that they can't, but they just had chosen not to. And then when they start realizing they can delegate a lot more and they just rearrange their calendar, it works a lot better. Now, you notice that I also have pre-meeting time and post-meeting time. So before every section or every meeting, you want to have pre-meeting time and post-meeting time. I had a number of advisors telling me that at the end of the week is when they finish off meetings that they had, write notes or clear everything off for the meetings. I thought, oh my God, that's a terrible waste of time. You have to go back and remember what happened in the meeting, relook at the papers or relook at things or re-listen to the recordings or do all this again when it would have been fresh in your mind to get it done, move it off, close it out, close your brain down and move on to the next activity. So a lot of times we're holding on to baggage in our head from a previous meeting going into the next activity. We don't want to do that if at all possible. So if you have pre-meeting time before every event, whether it's making phone calls, whether it's a meeting, whatever it is, a networking event, whatever it is, you want kind of a pre-meeting time that basically helps you with a pre-shot routine, your mindset, your way of being, any paperwork, anything you need to do to prepare to get the outcome you want for that block of time. Then you have post-meeting time after that event so that you can close out anything that you need to do. So some activities might require more post-meeting time than others. Some might be 5 minutes, some might be 15 minutes, some could be a half an hour depending on the type of activity or meeting that it was. So you just want to be clear that before every block of meeting or activity, there's a pre-meeting to do a pre-shot routine, get organized, get our mindset in the right place, and a post-meeting time to close it out so we're done and not carrying all that baggage in our head. So you'll notice that check email is not in the morning. So checking email, I strongly recommend that you work towards this to get your, so you don't check emails all the time and check first thing in the morning. I mean, one of the worst things that can happen is, hey, I need to do client acquisition or revenue generation time. I'm going to check email. I get an email and somebody sends me an email that really upsets me, pisses me off, and now I have to get on the phone and work to generate revenue, and I'm not in a good frame of mind. So I'm not going to do it now because I'm pissed off. Not a good thing. So, it doesn't work well for anybody. So we want to really work towards time blocking, checking email. My recommendation is twice a day. So sometime before lunch and sometime before you leave at the end of the day. Obviously, the other way you could do it is always have your administrative manager, if you have one, check emails for you and leave either only the things that you have to reply to in your in basket or move them to a folder where it has your name in it, and so you just go to look at that and you only handle those types of things. Okay, so I don't see any questions on that, so that should be pretty clear. And again, this is just another example. I didn't delineate between ideal client acquisition and non-ideal client in this particular example, but you just want to define your whole day. I mean, that includes workouts, that includes lunch, that includes everything. Drive time, I have to drive to someplace for a meeting perhaps. So you want to include the actual reality of how you use your time or need to use your time. So when is the best time to get the best result? So when I was working with one of my advisor clients, we realized that actually she was getting better results when she made calls on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So initially, she was making calls Monday through Friday. So when she started tracking everything she was doing, she realized she was getting a better result on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Why? We don't know. Doesn't matter. So the most important thing is to realize that she was getting the better result. So she moved more call time to schedule appointments and meetings and talk, to potential prospects or potential clients to Tuesday, Wednesday. And obviously some of those things that were on those days moved more to Thursday, Friday. So her overall results went up significantly with just a minor adjustment when you're paying attention to what it is you're doing and the results that you're getting as a result of those activities and where they're placed. And again, I recommend that everyone not only have a PAL, but also an ideal model work week, including staff. And I do staff programs all the time. And they continue to tell me that the PAL and having a model work week, it helps them when they thought they were already really good and super efficient, helps them be even more productive. Okay. Now, live by appointment only as much as possible. I know probably some of you are freaking out right now because you don't do this, but you really, really want to work to do this, whether it's face-to-face or on the phone. So you really want to strive to work by appointment only as much as possible. When a client calls in, you don't just drop everything like maybe some of you do. It's really better for everyone because you are more focused on them when the time is scheduled. So I've had so many people, and I've talked to them over the years, and it's terrible client service if I don't just drop what I'm doing to answer the phone and talk to them. And I disagree with that. I think it's better client service if the person, taking the phone call writes down every single thing about the reason why the person called and schedule a time to get back to them, whether it's for you to get back to them or for them to get back to them or somebody else in the office to get back to them. And they might have an idea about how long it would take to research or figure out the answer to whatever the reason is they're calling. So very few things do I view as, you have to do this and drop everything right now. And I do this as a test sometimes. I'll call some of the people that I'm working with, the staff people, and I'll call and ask for their advisor. And I say, is John Smith in? Yeah, let me put you through. I said, do not put me through. It's like, are you kidding me? This is a test. Now you've just interrupted them from doing their client acquisition time or business development time or whatever else, that they were doing. So again, it distracts them. We're trying to reduce the distractions and interruptions and have people be as efficient and as effective as possible because, boy, I don't know about you, but days fly by for me. Hours fly by for me. Months fly by for me. And if I'm not laser focused on what I need to do, I mean, it just really gets away from you. So I believe that there is an exception. If the building's burning down and somebody needs to tell you to get out because you'll burn alive, then I think that's an appropriate interruption. And most clients are okay with you getting back to them in 24 hours or 48 hours, again, depending on what it is they're calling about. So scheduling, I mean, nobody likes phone tag. Nobody, at least I've ever talked to, likes phone tag. So it's always better to work by appointment only as much as possible. Again, is it a perfect science? No, but we work towards that. So how do we reduce constant distractions and interruptions that plague most offices? Well, a couple examples might be, I'm going to train or educate my assistant, if you have one, to know your priorities and when to schedule things on your calendars to help you get them done. You're going to train or educate your assistant to check your email for you and put things only you need to do in, like I said, in a separate folder, just leave them in your in basket and they handle the other ones. You can train or educate or even empower your assistant or other staff members to handle most client service issues as much as possible. Again, it hopefully could be most non-ideal client service, but maybe even some ideal client service depending on what it is. Schedule a short period of time each day or week to get the miscellaneous BS done, or let it go, just let it go, as incomplete, just let it go. Again, don't check email first thing in the morning. I've even seen a lot of advisors who've set their autoresponders because they're only checking it at one time a day. So they have an autoresponder that says, hey, I appreciate your email. I check email between blank time and blank time, and I'll respond to you at that time if the matter is urgent. Please call my assistant so-and-so at this number. Obviously, if you don't have an assistant yet or enough people, obviously work towards making enough revenue so that you can get one. Better for everybody again. Okay. Earl Nightingale has a great quote. He says, people with goals succeed because they know where they're going. So review your high payoff activity list and put time in your calendar to get things done. Commit to honoring your calendar. In other words, do what it says to do. Consider making events reoccurring for 30, 60, or 90 days out if you don't already do this, to see how you might have to move things around, but it's better than putting them in one thing at a time, every day at a time, or every week at a time individually. So set reoccurring events as much as possible to move them around, so you work on, again, your time blocks. How is your ideal model work week set up? So what do I want to do? Am I calling referrals? Am I going to be reading email? Am I meeting with prospective clients? What am I doing? So think about it for a minute. Think about time blocking your calendar. Start with your highest payoff activities first. What days and times will you block for your activities to get the best results? So typically start with ideal client or client acquisition, revenue generation types of activities. That's where you want to start. So I want to block that time first. Then everything else goes around it. I even work with a lot of people. I tell them, put a time block on your calendar maybe once a week just to have lunch with blank. So is that going to be a prospect? Typically, yes, it could be a client, but typically it could be a prospective client or somebody that you want to get to know better that could be a prospective client, that sort of thing. And until you have it filled in, then it just stays blank. So it's kind of a game with yourself to say, okay, who am I going to schedule time to have lunch with? Now, I've also talked to a number of people who have said to me, Ann, things come up that are unexpected. Yeah, that's life. That's true. And I said, so how many times do things come up that are unexpected every week? Most people tell me maybe 2 to 3 times a week, there's something that comes up that's unexpected that potentially could interrupt their day. So I said, okay, well, if it takes you approximately, and they gave me a time limit, said, oh, maybe it takes me a half an hour, an hour to deal with that particular unexpected thing. I said, great. So put a time block in your calendar that basically says on those 2 or 3 days, it's going to be unexpected, and it will be either a 30-minute or an hour time block. So when those things come up that are unexpected, you just work on them during that time. So instead of dropping everything again, because typically most things you don't have to drop, even though a lot of people do, that's their excuse to get it done. Oh, I need to get this done right away. No, you really don't. Most people, again, are okay with waiting a short period of time to get, their responses. So you want to just have an unexpected block. Now, if you don't need the unexpected block, you just do more client acquisition work. So that's great. So if you don't need the block, you don't need it. But if you do need it, you have it. So again, create your ideal model work with time blocks that are for you, your actual reality of how you'd like your weeks to go in an ideal scenario. And in an ideal scenario, there still might be unexpected time. That's okay. Okay. Don't see any questions, so everything is super clear. Now, I know you can do a lot. However, you can't do it all no matter how good you are. I don't want to burst anybody's bubble, but that's just the actual reality of the situation. And you can't do everything you want to do, obviously, at the same time. So the easiest way to have more time, in my opinion, is to perhaps say no to the things that have the least impact on you achieving your goals. So you can make more room for the important things that do have an impact on you achieving your goals. Now, if it's important for you, you can always say yes later. So I've talked to a number of advisors who say, yeah, I'm part of this group, or do this charity thing, or do this, whatever it is. And I really don't like to do it 100%. I just do it because, or I've been doing it, or I got roped into it, or whatever it might be. So I said, the thing is, I mean, if you want to help the charity, when's the better time to do it? It's when you really have your entire ideal life and business together. So then you're able to really donate your time to some things that you might want to do. So just because you say no now doesn't mean that you have to say no forever. So you might want to jot down a couple of things that you're doing now that you wish you had said no to, or now you would like to say no to, and then come up with a short script to call whomever to tell them that I'm going to now not do this for you anymore, but in the future, in a year or 2 years or whenever the future is, I might be in a better position to do it. Now, some of you might be going to networking types of events, and they produce not big results for you. So I always tell people too, if they're not producing the result you want, then get out of it. Don't do it. Don't waste your valuable time. Now, that being said, sometimes you go to networking events, but you're not really applying yourself. You don't really have a goal. So whatever you do, whatever activity you do, you always want a goal and an end result in mind. So if I'm going to do this and invest my valuable time, this is what I hope to get out of it. So how do I do that? So how do I get the outcome that I'm looking for when I'm investing my time? And then if you don't get it after you've actively actually done the things that you want to do within that, and you're not getting the outcome, then you say, okay, this isn't for me. And you switch maybe to a different group, pick another activity that produces the result that you want. I mean, a lot of times you're around, maybe if you do a charity function or you do some things like that, you might be around potential people. So you might, ask yourself, okay, if this could be a potential client, what types of questions am I going to be asking them to have them talk about themselves enough so that I know a little bit about them, so that maybe I could then have a conversation of how I might be able to help them have a better life, because now I've delegated financial things to me to help. So they don't have to worry about this anymore. So I'm going to have a big impact on their life. And now I created 10 time management questions because I had a couple of people said, Ann, I'm really not good at time management. I haven't really applied time management principles. I'm not really good at, quote, honoring my calendar, doing what it says. So how can you help me be better at this and learn to get better at this? So I basically came up with a list of 10 questions, and you see them on the screen. I don't need to read them to you, and you can always go back and get the slides. So basically, these are 10 questions that helped them get better at just really getting into more time management and really applying what they needed to. Because a lot of times, and I've asked this, when there's nothing in your calendar, I've asked so many advisors this question: when you have blank time in your calendar, what are you doing? And the answer is don't know, got on Facebook, looked at this shiny object, went over here, started playing on the internet. Doing things that are not high payoff activities. So that's why it's super important to have every minute of your day associated with something. It could even say bathroom break, for crying out loud. But every minute is associated with some activity that keeps you focused. So if the calendar could talk, the calendar would tell you what to do. Now, assuming you have the right things on it, which come from your prioritized action list and what are the activities that you need to be doing. So assuming you have the right things on it, if your calendar could talk, it would tell you, Hey, Andre, do this. Hey, Brian, do that. Hey, Bruce, you need to do this now. It's time to switch gears to this other activity. This is how much time you allotted for this. We're now, switching gears to go to this. So you just want to work towards that, getting your entire calendar time blocked every minute of the day with what you need to do. And these questions, answering these questions, takes only a few minutes to do really every day to help you if you need some help with that. Now, if you do struggle with time management and want to get a handle on where you're actually spending your time, some of you I know are scared about that. It's like a food log. Oh, I'm having somebody that manages my food, so I eat better now because I actually have to track what I'm eating. Well, there's a simple time log that you can download. The URL is on your screen, and you can download that to really help you pinpoint where you are spending time. And this is also, it can be used, again, for staff. All these things I'm telling you, a lot of these things also apply to staff, and they can easily do this. So you know where they're spending their time. So if they manage, certain things, where are they spending their time, and what is the best use of their time? How are they leveraging that? So most successful people know where their time goes because they're really productive. They're laser focused. They have their priorities in order. They know what their high payoff activities are, and they're leveraging their time. They use their calendar to help them keep that laser focused and do what it tells them to do. Think about it could be a couple of things. Think about how much money you could make, how much more money you could actually make if you leveraged your time a little bit better. Think about maybe how much more time off you could have if you leveraged your time better. I asked an advisor the other day about how he felt about how he was managing his time, and he said, Ann, I could infinitely get better. I said, infinitely, huh? He said, oh yeah, I could infinitely get better. So I said, okay, then I guess we need to work on that. So again, for some people though, it's like, hey, I could make more money. Some people might be already making enough money. So it's not about so much money, it's time to do the things that they want to do. So focus on the results you want to get. And what do I need to do then to get those results? A couple other things that I thought might be of use to you is I created a referral and an opportunity tracker. And the reason is because I couldn't believe this. I had advisors I was talking to, it worked so hard to get referrals. And then I said, well, where are these people that you got referred to? Where do you keep them? How do you know when you talk to them, or what's the next step with them? And it was like, I don't know. Where did I put them? I don't know. Where are they? I don't know. They had no system. So I believe that you have to have a system in place for everything. So and I actually had one guy tell me, well, I have my contact management system. I said, great, show me how you're tracking exactly where somebody is in the pipeline. And he couldn't. So he had a contact management system, but he could not show me where people were in the pipeline. So I said, well, then it's not working for you. So if it's not showing you this, it's not working for you. So a couple of things that you might get benefit from. The URL, again, is on the screen. It's free. All these things are I'm telling you about. It is a referral tracker. So the name of the referral, who referred them, when did I contact them, when did I call them, did I email them, etc. So it's just a sample Excel spreadsheet. Again, for lack of a better way to get things to you, I just create, I'm not very good at Excel, but I create just basic Excel spreadsheets that help you figure out where people are in the pipeline. Then I asked somebody one year, I said, what's the opportunity? I said, we're coming down to the last quarter of the year. I said, what's your opportunity in the pipeline of actual potential revenue you have against what is your goal between now and the end of the year? And he was like, don't know, don't have a way to track that. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So we know what our goal is, to hit our revenue target, but you don't really know who's really in your pipeline for opportunity. I said, okay, so we need to create something. So on your left-hand side is what you're actually looking at, is what he created. So he created, on top was basically existing clients and in priority order, and you see he didn't really prioritize everything down below, but prospective clients. And the priority is by when you're going to see them next. So when is the person I'm going to see next? So, and what's the revenue opportunity there? So you might, kind of go through your existing clientele and say, what other opportunities do I have to help these people with whatever products or services that you have, and get, them on a list, excuse me, of, what's the opportunity. So you move constantly. You're putting people in your pipeline. They're coming out either as clients, as ideal clients, as non-ideal clients, or neither. Maybe you don't want them because they're just not, your kind of person that you would want to work with. So the referral tracker and the opportunity tracker are two ways to help you be more focused and more diligent with where your opportunities are, how many referrals you're getting, and to be more diligent to ask for referrals as well. I never figured that one out. Advisors don't ask for referrals, and then they certainly don't expect many when they do ask. So big mistake, but that's my opinion. Okay, a couple more slides and we're at the top of the hour. We'll be good to go. Obviously, you might be thinking that you might have some work to do to implement some of these ideas that we've talked about to get even better results than you're enjoying today. So in order for most people to stay focused on what they need to do every day, they need a little accountability. I'm the same way. I need a little accountability. That's why I have to schedule things with people to keep me on track too. We all need a little accountability in the things that we do. Now, as you might imagine, the people who get the biggest results work with me one-on-one to hold them accountable to what they know they need to do to have the kind of business and life they truly want. And of course, that is not for everybody. That is for sure. The next group of people who get the biggest results are those who participate in my Accelerate Your Results coaching program. So if you want to experience the same results other advisors have enjoyed and you're ready to stop procrastinating, you're 100% committed to achieving your goals, and you're ready to break out of any potentially limiting beliefs and invest in yourself, you might want to check out the Accelerate Your Results group coaching program to see if it might be a fit for what you're looking for. So all you have to do is just go to accountabilitycoach.com and just go to the store and look at the program, and there's a big description there of what it's about, what it entails, and you can see if that's something that you might be interested in. So now you're thinking, okay, now that I have a better idea on strategies and tools to increase my productivity and my income, what's my next logical step? Well, in my opinion, I'd schedule time to watch or listen to this webinar again, or at least look at the slides to help you just make sure that you've gotten all the notes that you needed to from our time together. So you know what it's like when you watch a movie a second or third time and you see things that you missed the first time. Well, I believe repetition is a good thing. So that might be something that you do and next to just either download the slides and or the webinar again. And then, of course, schedule time to implement the action items that you wrote down. So imagine that it's 1 year from now and you wake up and as you're leisurely drinking your morning beverage, you realize that you're now living your ideal life. Take a moment and reflect on what you did to actually be here. You took action on what you learned today is perhaps one of the key factors. So don't let this be another web class that you attended and didn't implement anything. Let me know how else I can assist you on your goal achievement journey. Now, Insurance WebEx Insider will post this webinar on their website, as well as I will post it on my website along with the slides, and you'll get an email in probably a couple days' time with the link to where that is if you do want to go back on that. I don't see any other questions. Oh, I appreciate that, Paul. He's just telling me I've been absolutely terrific, and thanks for the wonderful wisdom, and you're welcome, and you're welcome, and you're welcome. I don't see any other questions, so make it a great rest of your week and let me know how else I can help you. Take care, everybody.